Well, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I hope you guys are doing wonderful out there. I've got an interesting video for you today. We're going to talk about a couple flashlights today. We're going to talk about the Thrunite BSS V4. This is the camouflage edition light. This currently is selling for $79.95. And on the left here, we're going to talk about the Olight M2R Pro Warrior, also the camouflage edition. And at the time of me purchasing this, it was around $110. So I'm going to go ahead and open these lights up, and we're going to have a head-to-head comparison about them. So we'll set the M2R Pro Warrior down right there, and the Thrunite BSS V4 right there. So as you can see, both lights come with a holster. And looking at the Thrunite holster, it's very simple, very thin. I mean, you can fold the thing. It's very, very flimsy. I'm not going to say that it's bad because it will do what it's designed to do. It's got the nice D-ring on the back, plastic D-ring, and it has a enclosure here where you can slide your belt through. So it's a very basic Velcro enclosure. Very simple, basic holster. Comes with the light. Now looking at the Olight, you got a little bit more options here. You got the D-ring on the back. You have the ability to slide your belt through in two different locations. So you got right there. You have right here as well. You also have a button snap right here. So if you wanted to attach this to molly or around something and snap that bad boy on, you could do that. This light also, this holster also, instead of having a Velcro enclosure, it has a slide release buckle. So very nice. You get a nice secure lock, keeping that light together, keeping that holster shut. It's a rigid holster too. It's not near as thin or flimsy as the Thrunite holster. So in my opinion, when it comes to these two lights, the Olight definitely wins in the holster category. Now, if you want to look at the lights themselves and look at the finish, the machining and the finish on the M2R Pro Warrior is fantastic. And then looking at the BSS V4 from Thrunite, the finish and the build quality, everything is also very, very nice. I mean, it's fantastic. So I would probably say honestly that it's a wash as far as build quality and the way that the lights look, the paint job and stuff like that. I notice on the copper here on the Olight, they're using a little bit darker copper versus the Thrunite, they're using like a little lighter copper. But both lights have done, in my opinion, a fantastic job on the paint job. So now both lights, they do have a very ultra low mode. On the Thrunite they call it a Firefly, on the Olight they call it a Moonlight mode, but both lights have that. They both have a low, they both have a medium. The Olight has a second medium, they both have a high, and they both have a turbo. They both also have a strobe. So let's start with Firefly. When we're talking about Firefly, we're looking at the Thrunite here. This is 0.54 lumens. So just a little bit above half of a lumen, and it'll last for 56 days. So if you long press, let me get the button here. You long press, you get that Firefly mode lit up. And like I said, that's 0.54 of a lumen. 56 days of runtime. That's fantastic. On the Olight, when you long press, it's the same way to access the Firefly, but as you can see, the Firefly is much brighter on the Olight. It's 1 lumen. Okay, so you got half a lumen in the Thrunite, 1 lumen in the Olight. Now what's cool is the Olight, even though it's 1 lumen, it's twice as bright, it lasts 50 days. And if you turn the light off on both of these lights, okay, so you turn off the Firefly mode, when you turn the light back on, the Thrunite goes to low, medium, or high, but the Olight will remember Firefly. So I give the edge on that category of Moonlight mode or Firefly to the Olight, simply because you get almost the same amount of runtime, twice as bright, much more performance out of that lowest setting, and it does remember that setting. Now when you go to low, you're dealing with 33 lumens on the Thrunite. So you push the light, you got a nice little pattern there. 33 lumens, and that'll last 55 hours and 42 minutes. If you want to convert that into days, that's 2.32 days. Now if you turn the Olight on, there's Firefly or Moonlight mode. We got to cycle up to low. On low, you're getting 15 lumens, 130 hours of runtime, and that comes out to 5.41 days. Now if you want to look at the beam patterns and you want to kind of compare them, you can see that the Thrunite has a beam pattern that is very floody, and the Olight has that nice tight hotspot. So in my opinion, I would go with the Olight on the lowest setting, simply because you got a nice tight hotspot and over double the runtime. So now if we push the button on the Thrunite here and we go up to medium, we're going to be dealing with 360 lumens. That'll last 4.5 hours. So that's a pretty good medium. Now Olight, on the other hand, it's got medium 1, which is 60 lumens. That's 40 hours of runtime. 40 hours of runtime. That's 1.6 days. So if we want to talk about just the first medium setting, of course I would have to go with the Thrunite because it's much more light. We're dealing with 360 lumens, but if runtime is what you're looking for, then definitely go with the Olight, because you're dealing with 4.5 hours on the Thrunite versus 40 hours on the Olight, or 1.66 days. Now Olight, if we bump it up to the higher medium, which is right here, I would have to go with Olight on this one though, because it bumps it up to 250 lumens and you get a lot more usable light. And the runtime is 10 hours versus 4.5 hours. So more than double the amount of runtime out of the Olight. So fantastic medium settings there. Now if you want to push and hold again, you'll get up to high. Let me do that on the Thrunite here. Push and hold. There's low, there's medium, there's high. Now both lights are on high. If we look at the Thrunite beam, you can see that it's a very floody beam. We are dealing with 1426 lumens for a little over 2 minutes. Then it'll step down to prevent overheating, and it'll go to 634 lumens for 150 minutes or 2.5 hours. Now if we talk about the Olight, high on this one is 750 lumens, so it's not as bright, but you'll notice that it has a tighter hotspot. We're dealing with 750 lumens for 160 minutes. That's 2.6 hours, and then it'll step down to 250 lumens for an additional 40 minutes. So when it comes to high, you really got to decide if you want a floody, I'm backing this thing away about where the camera is, if you want the Thrunite big floody beam or if you want the Olight nice tight hotspot. They both have good run times. They're both compatible in my opinion as far as run times. So you got the Olight there right now, then you got the Thrunite. So it really depends on what you like, but me personally, if I had to choose one of these lights, as far as high is concerned, I would have to choose the Olight. I think it wins in that category. Now, if we double press the switch here, we'll get to turbo. Turbo on the Thrunite is 2,523 lumens for 125 seconds. So just over 2 minutes. Then it drops down to 614 lumens for 147 minutes, or 2.45 hours. Now if we look at the Olight, we double press, we get to turbo, we're dealing with 1800 lumens for 4.5 minutes. Then it steps down to 750 lumens for 145 minutes, or 2.41 hours. Then it steps down again to 250 lumens for an additional 45 minutes. So it really comes down to, do you want the flood of the Thrunite or do you want the tight hotspot of the Olight? Now, if we're talking about turbo, both of these lights perform fantastic. The Thrunite is getting hot in my hand. The Olight is not. It's warming up, but it's not getting hot. The Thrunite is considerably hotter in my hand. If I had to pick one of these, I would pick the Olight as far as turbo, because the distance of throw is 250 meters out of the Thrunite, or 300 meters out of the Olight. And when I'm going to use a flashlight, I want something that's going to reach out there. The Olight has a good pattern though. You can see that as you back away, you have a nice spill, but you have that kind of tight hot spot. Whereas the Thrunite, it's all flood. Okay, so both of these lights are fantastic though. Now the strobe function, if we triple press, you get a strobe on the Olight, very disorienting. And if we look at the Thrunite and we triple press, you get a strobe out of the Thrunite as well. So here's the Thrunite, here's the Olight, very disorienting on both lights. Again, it just depends on what kind of strobe you're looking for. I think it's probably a wash on the strobe, because both lights are very disorienting when it comes to strobe. I talked about the throw just a minute ago. You got 300 meters versus 250 meters. So when it comes to throw, I definitely got to go with the Olight on that one. Now they're both impact resistant down to 1.5 meters, so it's a wash on that department. And they're both IPX8 waterproof down to 2 meters. However, I gotta go with the Olight on the waterproofing, because on the Thrunite, you have this little charge port cover that can get messed with, and then you have water going into your charge port. On the Olight, there's nothing like that could be a potential exposure to water. So even though Thrunite has done a very good job, I have to go with Olight, because I don't want my IPX8 rating to be based on whether this piece of rubber's in place or not. Maybe I'm in the boat and I miss that it's out of place, and then I jump in the water. Now I'm exposed to the elements. I just don't like taking that gamble. So when it comes, me personally, when I'm gonna have to pick one of IPX8, I gotta go with the Olight on that one. Now let's talk about the batteries that these lights have. There's a big difference in these batteries. On the Olight, they're using a customized 21700 cell, and on the Thrunite, they're using a standard 18650 cell. So the cool thing about the battery here, I like the capacity that the 21700 has. It's got quite a bit more capacity. So if you think about the gas tank, you got 3100 milliamp hour versus 5000 milliamp hour. So as far as capacity is concerned, I got to go with the Olight on the battery for the capacity. But as far as simplicity, and in the event that this battery fails, it's much easier to replace the battery on the Thrunite than it is on the Olight. Of course, Olight, you have to go with their battery. On a Thrunite, you can get an aftermarket battery, slap it in your light, and you're good to go. So I got to go with Thrunite on the simplicity of replacing the battery. It's a better option in my opinion. But for capacity, I got to go with the Olight. And the reason Olight is getting those better run times is because of that bigger capacity battery. So it just depends on what you plan on doing. If you think that you might need to replace the battery someday and you want something simple, go with the Thrunite. It's very nice. But if you want something that's going to have better run times, go with the Olight. Now, when you want to talk about the weight of the light, there's a big difference here. This Thrunite is considerably lighter because, as you just saw, it's got a smaller battery in it. So we're dealing with 91 grams or 3.2 ounces versus 179 grams or 6.31 ounces. The Olight is definitely heavier, so the edge as far as weight has to go to the Thrunite. Now, dimensions of the light, the Olight, we're dealing with 136.5 millimeters long by 29.5 millimeters diameter. On the Thrunite, we're dealing with 146.5 millimeters long by 28 millimeters at the widest point, and the body of the light is 25.4 millimeters. So when it comes to size and dimensions, I got to go with the Thrunite. It's a smaller light. Now, when you want to talk about operating voltage, this is where Thrunite wins. They will operate anywhere from 2.7 all the way up to 8.4 volts. Now, what does that mean? That means you can run single 18650s, you can run dual CR123s or dual RCR123s out of this light. With the Olight, you're only going to use that battery that comes with the light. So definitely Thrunite wins in the versatility as far as the ability to change out batteries and stuff like that. So now the LED, Thrunite is listed as an SST70 LED. Olight does not specify what LED they got with the light, so I don't know. They're both doing fine. Candela is another factor. We've got 15,750 versus 22,400 out of the Olight, so the edge has to go to the Olight in Candela. Now, both of these lights do have a lockout function. So on the Olight, you just push and hold. You'll see Moonlight mode. You keep holding until Moonlight mode disappears. Then you can let off the button and you're in lockout mode. So when you push the button, you'll see a red indicator. Nothing happens. You don't get any light. Tail cap switch doesn't work. Nothing works. So it has a very nice lockout function. And to unlock it, you just push and hold until you see Moonlight mode. And so it's a fantastic lockout function. On the Thrunite, it's very similar. We're going to push and hold until we see the Moonlight mode, let off the button. Then we push and hold again until Moonlight mode disappears. And now we're basically in the same position as we were with the Olight. See, that red indicator is telling us that we're locked out. And then again, to unlock the light, we push and hold until we see Firefly. So both lights have a fantastic lockout mode. So if you're going to put these lights maybe in your pack or something like that, you're going to hike a trail, definitely got to go with these both. But my edge goes to Olight on the lockout mode simply because you don't have to let up and push down again. You just push and hold, you'll see Moonlight mode, then you keep holding until Moonlight mode goes away. It's not that big of a difference, but both are fantastic, but I'd have to give the edge to the Olight on that one. Now, charging, as we saw on the Thrunite, you have a micro USB charging port. So you got to move that little rubber piece out of the way, and you have your micro USB charging port, which works good for a lot of people. A lot of people like that. In my personal opinion, Olight wins by a long shot when it comes to charging because you have the magnetic charging. No, I mean, hands down, much better charging system in my opinion. One thing that the Thrunite does that the Olight does not do is they include a red lens. So you can take off this strike bezel and screw on a red lens for night vision. So definitely got to give the edge to Thrunite for having a red lens for night vision. Both lights do have a power level indicator. So on the Thrunite it's blue, and then it'll turn red, and then it'll flash red, and then you're done. On Olight it's green, it'll turn orange, it'll turn red, it'll turn flashing red, and then it's done. So they both are very good, but in my opinion, I think the Olight makes more sense as far as their power level indicator. Now this next category is modes of operation. The Thrunite only has one mode of operation. If you push the tail cap switch, you go to turbo, and if you use the side switch, you can cycle through the modes and everything like that. So it has one way that you can operate this light. You can long press for firefly mode or moonlight mode, whatever you wish to call it, but it's very, very simple in its operation. So Olight's tail cap switch, if you half press, you'll go to a medium setting, and if you deep press, you'll go to turbo. You can also do all the same functions with the side switch, just like you can on the Thrunite. So instead of being limited to just turbo only, you have medium or turbo on the tail cap switch. But there's another step where if you push and hold this down and then you push the side switch, you'll see that strobe. You've now changed this light to a tactical mode of operation, where halfway gives you turbo and deep press gives you strobe. So you have two modes of operation. So I definitely got to give the edge to Olight in that department. To be able to grab the light just like this and go halfway to turbo or deep to strobe, that's just fantastic. And then again, to put it back to normal operation, you just deep press here, single press the side switch, now you got turbo just like the Thrunite. So definitely the edge on that goes to the Olight by a long shot. Let's talk about the pocket clips. They both have a very nice steel pocket clip, and on the Thrunite you have about an inch of flashlight hanging out of your pants. So if you were to put this in your pocket, you're going to have this much light hanging out. On Olight, they got a nice deep carry pocket clip, so the light is going to go almost flush to your pocket here. Very nice. It's also a dual direction pocket clip, so you can put this on a bill of a hat and use it as a headlamp, as long as your hat or hard hat or whatever is sturdy enough to hold the weight of this light. So the edge, in my opinion, as far as pocket clip, clearly goes to the Olight. They just simply have a better pocket clip. If you want to refer to the side switches, you got a rubber side switch on the Olight, you got a metal side switch on the Thrunite. Hands down, it goes to Thrunite on the side switches. If you want to talk about the tail cap switch, you got a rubber switch on the Thrunite and a steel switch on the Olight. So in my opinion, stainless steel beats rubber, so I got to go with the Thrunite on the side switch and the Olight on the tail cap switch. So really, when it comes to switches, it's a wash in my opinion. The rubber right here gives you nice traction if it's wet or you got gloves on or something like that, but there's just something about that stainless steel, it's not going to break on you. Same thing here with the side switch. So if you could see a flashlight that had a metal side switch and a metal tail cap switch, I think that'd be fantastic. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a wash when it comes to switches, because both lights have very nice switches. Now lastly, I want to talk about the strike bezel on these lights. Both lights have a fantastic strike bezel. My personal opinion, I like the Thrunite strike bezel just a little more because it's got more aggressiveness to it. It's going to be a little bit more effective in a self-defense application. So I got to give the edge to Thrunite on that one. And if we look at the lenses, you can see that Thrunite has a glass lens with a clear reflector, and the Olight has a plastic TIR optic lens. So when it comes to lenses, personally, I like glass over plastic, but I have never had a problem with my M2R Pro Warrior. but I got to go with the glass. I think Thrunite wins when it comes to their selection of materials to use for the lens. Both of these lights are fantastic. If I had to pick one over the other, I would choose the Olight personally. The price tag is higher though. You're dealing with 110 versus 80. So if you're on a budget, don't be afraid to buy the BSS V4. This is a fantastic light. You're getting a ton of bang for the buck out of this light. 80 bucks, and it's competing pretty well with the Olight. Even though it has a smaller battery, the run times aren't as good, it is a fantastic light. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to drop comments down below and let me know in the comment section which light you like best and why. Is there something that I may have missed in this video? So if you have anything like that, please drop it in the comments section down below. Also, I will post links to where you can find these lights in the description box of the video. Unfortunately, this camouflage that Olight is doing was a limited edition color. You cannot find it anymore unless you find it maybe on eBay or something like that. So the good news is you can find Thrunite all day long right now in that camo color. So they definitely win as far as availability is concerned. So with all that being said, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free again to leave comments down below, like this video, share this video, and until next time, have a beautiful day. We'll see you then. Bye for now.